This time we will be doing part two of an interview that we did 2 weeks ago with my wonderful friend and also a moderator for this group, Melody Chang. Excuse me. Last time we had a great conversation. I really loved the show. It's gathered over 500 views, which to me tells me a lot. It really does. We're doing a little bit of a audio thing here, so don't mind if you hear some feedback. But yeah, we're getting everything kind of like situated and practically ready to go. I'm very happy to have my guests back here. And before we go any further with the actual talking about the haunting, the wrap up of the hauntings at Bishop Museum. Before we go there. Wait, hold on one second. Is that feedback? If you're listening to the show, can you turn it down, please?
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on. Let me do real quick. So you're going to hear echoes real quick, and then I'm going to put it on mute.
That's an echo.
All right. So that's good. So I know what I sound like.
You sound good. We're good to go.
And so I can be on mute and also say hello to everyone in chat.
Oh, we have Mace Minakal here tonight. That's and everyone else. But wow, Mace, thank you for being here this evening. Uh, well, yeah. What I was going to say, and you sound great, Melody. You're good. What I was going to say is I had a very. It's interesting. I always at times talk about this whole sense of synchronicity and how all these elements come together, whether it be people or situations, circumstance, and it kind of like creates it creates something that it just makes sense the way they all come together and connect. So what happened to me was last night, well, in the early morning hours of Saturday morning, I was having this dream, and I believe this dream has to deal with a place that both me and Mace and a few other people have actually investigated. So this dream was unfolding and it was going at a good clip. It wasn't like scattered or going in different directions. It was straightforward, this dream. And in this dream, there was this shadow type entity, and it was standing in the hallway. So if Mace is listening, the hallway of where we went to investigate last. And so it was standing in the hallway and it was there. And after a bit, it kind of like spoke to me. I mean, it was kind of like a standoff, like I'm not going anywhere and I know you're not going anywhere. Although logically speaking, if I would have encountered this, I would have turned around and run. But eventually it asked me about God. It said, okay, I'm going to come at you and your God will not be able to help you. And what it did was it just rushed me. It was really weird because I'm standing in a dark hallway and I can see this dark entity, and it rushes me, and I'm like thrown up against a wall of some type, and I couldn't move at all. Could not move. And then so I woke up from that, and I was still having a conversation with whoever it was, and they were like pinning me down. I mean, literally, I've experienced this before, and people can go back and forth round table and say, well, it's your dream. You woke up, your body was still responding, but there's just something about the presence of a ghost. You can absolutely tell the difference between that and other things as well. Although I have to say, sometimes when you encounter spirits, if you're at haunted locations, it's almost like a dream type environment. I'll ask Melody if she's ever experienced that kind of like you're here but you're not here type of experience. So anyway, I was able to get free from that, which is kind of interesting because here we are again this evening and we're talking about ghosts and spirits. And the last time I was talking to Melody, there was a shadow involved. This one that happened to me was a shadow as well. Later on, I'm going to talk about maybe the significance of that with something else. But without further ado, and thank you for being here, Melody Chang, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from, are you still in Kaneohe tonight?
Yep, I'm in Kaneohe tonight.
Oh, good to hear from you. It's really nice to have you back. So, Melody, the first thing I wanted to ask you, with all of these things that I just mentioned to you, what
Mm-hmm.
have spirits or ghosts in some way at all changed your life? I mean, have you, you encountered them and you just, I know you said you've seen them from when you were young, very young, but was there any
Yeah.
experience that you had that maybe changed your life after that? Was it like, as far as Bishop Museum goes?
Um, it just kind of became a part of my life of like always having spirits around. So it kind of directed me to different types of people in my life, and that's how kind of it affected me. Kind of created my path and who I would meet.
Whoa, okay. I mean, I feel that for most of us, and I'm going to be looking at what the chat said because I was totally talking about my experience. I just feel that it does in some way. It either changes you in a way that is significant, or you can kind of like block it out and just say that it's something else that's causing whatever happened to you. I think once you do open up, it does change things a bit for any individual, for the for the most part, and hopefully for the better as well. These are extraordinary circumstances when the living and the dead come together, or whatever the heck some of these things are, and we're experiencing something that to some degree is still like a huge question mark. So, but I wanted to ask
Mm-hmm.
you as well. So you were telling me, Melody, that there are some experiences that you haven't finished up yet. Bishop Museum is like not quite finished with your experiences and such. So, what is the first thing
Yeah.
that you would like to talk about? I think we had a cliffhanger last week.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
last
was cut
time.
off on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And so with spirits and me, a lot of times that I do encounter them, it's for me to learn a lesson. And so in the Science Adventure Center, I did have a spirit kind of teach me a lesson about some of the things I say and kind of to watch what I say when I tell some of my stories, especially with the keiki or small kids. Because back when I was a kid growing up, I did have Menehune encounters. Me and my cousins even made a little club called the Menehune Club because we would run around kind of looking for evidence of Menehune. So when I was working at the Science Adventure Center, we would tell a little bit of ghost stories, and I told the story to the kids there that about what Menehune do if you don't go to sleep on time. Because where I grew up, Menehune would pull your hair after 10 p.m. if you weren't in bed. And they did do that in Waihole. I'd be awake at 10 p.m. and then might feel something tug my hair. And that was the Menehune. And so after I told that story in the Science Adventure Center, what I hear is, Mel! And nobody else around me and the group that we were with were had that voice. And I was like, what? I got to get the kids to bed. They should be in bed by 10. I'm sorry. And that happened that night. I was sitting in my sleeping area in the Science Adventure Center reading a book. And at 10 p.m., my hair got tugged. So that's kind of my wrap up with that lovely place.
The Menehune encounter.
The Menehune encounters.
Now,
So
I,
don't mess with them.
no, I understand. I remember you told me that you have this ability to sense and see them. Did you just connect the Waihole event with the one at Bishop Museum, or did you actually? Well, let me ask you this: if you could feel, this is a good question. If you could feel a Menehune, right, their presence, maybe not see them but feel them. What would you describe that presence like? If you were to describe feeling the presence of a Menehune in a room with you, what would that be like? Well, how would you go
It's like
about telling me?
it's just like somebody looking at you in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You sense that they're staring down your neck, but when you turn, there's nobody there, or there's a gecko there.
Okay, but what I'm getting at is how would you? I mean, I've encountered them. I'm saying this, and you
Hmm.
can feel free to check or uncheck the sanity list as far as who I am. Okay, um,
Okay.
but I have encountered them with my roommate. That's a true to life story that happened years ago. And we were out in the dark and had an encounter with Menehune. The feeling of what they were like is very much so along the lines of what people have said in legend. It's just like the sense of uh, curiosity and kolohi, but there was something else there. I don't even know if you would call it Menehune, but there was something else there that was really, really interested in us being there, but at the same time, didn't quite seem to be the same alignment with that energy of Menehune. And actually, it's unfortunate. I did photograph the Menehune, but
Mm.
for some bizarre reason, I actually lost the photo. Although I still have I ran into these more than once. I think I may have meant a Epa, which is very similar to a Menehune, but I have a picture of that one. So that's why I'm asking if you think it's a Menehune, uh, what kind of vibe did you get, or as far as like how can you identify that energy as being that of a Menehune?
The clothes thing. It's like I get the look, like feeling like they're watching, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like a very friendly, um, and yet mischievous kind of looking over the shoulder, like somebody reading over your, like when you're reading a book and somebody's looking over your shoulder and reading.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's like the best way I could describe the feeling.
Oh, okay. By the way, thank you for the 4 likes. I appreciate it, guys, and thank you all for being here this evening. Before we go any further, let me kind of go back on the comment section because, like I said, I was talking about that really spooky incident that happened to me earlier today. So let's see, go all the way back here. We have Johnny Rodillo. Thank you so much for being here. Mace, again, awesome. Of course, Melody is in the audience too, which is very good. Prayers will be said for Johnny. Um, and Neil being here, thank you as well. Mace is saying, we were just talking about there the other night, LOL. I was just telling Marie about the hundreds of blue orbs in the hallway. See how much energy that place has that we're talking about? I'm thinking this might be an actual connection, a synchronized connection with the spirits there, because a lot of them are not at rest. Sista 808 says, how's it, Obaki? Brown Dwarf, haven't seen you in a while. We call them duendes. Yes, exactly. I've read up about that. Koniko Kid, thanks
Yeah.
all. Don't forget to like and subscribe, folks. Thank you for that, Melody. Peace of mind. Hi, all. Sorry I'm listening while doing my assignment. No problem. Glad you're here. So, as far as the Menehune encounter, did you kind of like internalize this a lot and didn't bring it up to other people, or did other people tell you that they've encountered Menehunes as well at the Bishop Museum?
I had other people encounter them, mainly the other techs, but it was kind of like along the lines of something would break and then they'd go back in and it'd be fixed. And they'd be like, okay, weird, thank you for fixing that.
That's
Or and then after it'd be fixed, they would hear scurrying feet away.
mm-hmm. That's incredible. There's a couple of things that happen at the Bishop Museum with your encounters. Like, so I'm kind of reviewing some of it, but then again, I can't help it. Considering what you shared, like the one you shared about the Lee's Evie getting up and then leaving on its own. That's incredible. But again, you can definitely find that relationship in the way the Hawaiian people saw the power of the Evie and everything else when it came to their people. But now you're saying something else that's rather interesting. Something broke, and then I guess you went to do something, whatever. You came back and it was fixed, and you could hear little feet running around. That reminds me of
Yeah.
Menehune. That's their nature. If you remember about what they say about like the fish ponds on Kauai and stuff like that, They were very
Yeah.
industrious people. I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, and I was agreeing with you. Yeah. So that was another a little thing that they would do. But they never really hung out in the planetarium. It's like once Science Adventure Center went up, that was their hangout spot. So a lot of the Menehune encounters all happened in that building.
I wonder if they were. Well, I'm pretty sure they were around Hawaiian Hall. To some
Yeah.
degree, they probably were. Didn't you say that there was something else about Hawaiian Hall having to do with a stone or something?
Oh yeah. Since I always whenever I talk about the Bishop Museum, I always try to bring up the Pohaku fish god. It's this really cool stone that was brought over to the museum. And then when they placed the stone where it is now, it did not move. And when they did the renovations, it did not move. It just stayed in the same spot. So before I came on, I looked up its name. It's Kane Iko Kala. I would just call him Kane. But when we did renovations of Hawaiian Hall, the exhibit technicians noticed that the lights, the way that they placed them, made the shadow of that Pohaku look like a 9-foot tall person. Like that was just looming over you. And the first time I noticed it, I asked the text, like, you did it on purpose? Like, yeah, he likes it. And so, like, when I looked back at the Pohaku, you could see that that he was smiling. That's another thing about that particular stone. It changes its expression because it has, like, a face on it.
I've seen it. I know exactly what you're talking about. And while you were talking, I remembered. And that's why I love talking about Bishop Museums because, again, I mean, for me personally, I spent a lot of time at that place. I bought a year membership and I
Mm-hmm.
was there so much of the time when I had that. And I've seen that one. It's kind of like it's almost like in the shape of a person, and its face is really interesting. You can see the eyes and everything else, the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, correct me because I don't mind being corrected. Wasn't that found nearby and they put it in the museum, or was it there and they built a? I forget what was the story
It
behind
was
it.
from Waipahu.
Oh, it's on my Pohaku.
It was
Okay,
like
so
either Waipahu or Kaena Point. A
oh, okay,
farmer dug them up, and his head, he was told to bring the stone to the museum.
that
And
museum.
if you Google it and look for him, a picture of him,
Hmm.
the plaque on the back has the whole story about how that Pohaku ended up there, with the picture of the farmer that brought him over.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I've seen it, and I did that thing that I believe I mentioned the last time, where you kind of get your camera and you lift it up and you look at the viewfinder, and it's kind of a technique in a way, I guess, or it just depends if the spirit is receptive. But I saw like white energy, no joke, coming in and out of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't even look like a regular orb, just like white energy coming out and moving around, going back into it. So not only did I feel it, but there was a way of actually seeing it, and it always gives you chicken skin. But then again, if you walk into Hawaiian Hall, that whole place will give you that sense of reverence along with that physical reaction to it. So very
And
cool.
it doesn't matter what entrance you take for Hawaiian Hall. It's always like, whoa, it's a very interesting feeling.
I think where I think the strongest feeling is when you come from when you come into the on the grounds of Bishop Museum and you go to that front
Mm-hmm.
entrance.
Mm-hmm.
That is incredible. I think when you walk into that, it's like, whoa! It's it's not the. I'm sure it's not even close to. I mean, I've seen videos of other museums around the world. It's not the biggest, but I think it's because of so many artifacts there. It's that buildup of energy, but it kind of like presents itself to you, or it just kind of like flows over you. But it's an incredible feeling. It's a feeling of the past. It's the feeling of the past being very much alive and having a sense of purpose in the present. So I don't know if you ever felt that going through the front doors.
Oh yeah, it's like entering into the past. The only way I can explain when you go through the front, you just step into another world.
Yes, I totally, totally agree with you on that. And and to this day, I mean, I look forward to having the opportunity to be there, listening to the stories like what you've shared, and just the amazing stuff like the Ao Makua thing that
Mm-hmm.
happened there with the big white owl that showed up for like a week straight at night, and the security guards saw it. They even pointed to the tree out front. Said, "See that tree right there? That owl would land in that tree and stay there." And definitely showed us a sign of not only presence, but very much so awareness. That owl was there for a reason, and it took note of everyone. I believe it. I love owls. It's an affinity with me. But there's so many wonderful stories about Bishop Museum. Although a few, I have to say, they present something else in its own way. But not everything I think should be talked about. So I kind of like pull back from
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that I've heard about the place. It just presents itself in its own way, and I'll just leave it at that. Wonderful place though, and I highly
Yeah.
recommend everybody going to visit there. So how long did you work at Bishop Museum again?
13 years.
13 years. Anything happen before you leave? Did any of them show up and say, hey, take care, Melody, it was nice having you around, or anything like that?
Um, like the usuals, like any of the royals show up.
Or anything? You notice anything, or did anyone like say aloha to you before you left, or
Um, it was kind of a sudden leave for me,
mm-hmm.
so it was kind of slightly unexpected.
Okay.
And I it, since I do go back, I never really have a feeling of like bye. It's like, oh hey, see you again. We'll see you again.
That's good though.
Yeah.
That's very pono. It's good to keep things that way.
And then speaking of the planetarium, um, since I had been there so long and during its transition into its newer form now,
Mm-hmm.
when I first started there was slide projectors up inside of the planetarium. So if if you know what a slide projector is, we kind of know it's showing your age,
Haha.
I guess.
Yes. I
But
hear you.
I was one of the ones that would go up in there, and there was a ton of times that I got shocked while fixing those slide projectors. So I joke that someday I may be a ghost there. I'm the one running around in the top fixing those slide projectors, even though they're not there anymore.
So you thought your time was up with the way you were getting shocked and everything. Oh, I can
Yeah.
understand that. Wow. It's I mean, honestly, if you just want to experience history and everything else, or even get a sense of something spiritual besides, the retelling of culture and everything else with the exhibits, you want a sense of spirit, you might even see one. Like they said, Prince Albert haunts the place, and tourists have actually seen him. I've had my fair share of experiences. The most incredible one was when Lopaka was telling ghost stories there. And it's interesting, you and I saw kind of like the same type of entity, and I saw it in Hawaiian Hall above Lopaka, and it was bending over and like listening again, using that thing about them showing awareness and such. So, thank you for sharing everything about Bishop Museum, and I believe you have a few personal things that happened to you as well. I mean, I don't know if it's before or after Bishop Museum, but I'm all ears. I'm really, really in tune with what you've been saying to me tonight.
So I wanted to also tell one of my stories that happened over in Waihole when I was very young with the Menehune Club. There was a night that me and my cousins decided to go sleep across the beach from my grandmother's house. And the reason you're told not to sleep across the beach is because things would happen. And at the time, there was these trees, all how trees that kind of covered the beach. So it kind of gave it an extra creepy feeling of like these giant trees just protecting over the area. And so we thought it was a nice idea. If it rains, the trees will protect us. So we're sleeping out there and get later in the night. And then all of a sudden, off in the distance, I saw this white object. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's a person walking the beach at night. Gets closer and closer. Okay, it's a lady, and she's got a hole in her stomach, and no face. So me and my cousins both see that. All three of us see this. There's two other ones. And we get up and book it back across the beach, back to the grandma's house, and hide in there for the rest of the night.
Holy cow! So, from the point where you saw this light, this white light, and then it changes into this horrifying vision that you just described. How long? How long was that? I mean, how long do you think that was? Like 30 seconds or so, or less, or more?
Probably about a minute.
Ooh.
So it's like I want to say it started from 100 feet away. Was like when it started. It was like a white mist, and then at like 50 feet is when it started to like take shape. We could see that it was a woman.
And how close was it before you could see that this ghost had no face and a hole in its stomach? That's a first for me hearing something like that.
She was about 10 feet away.
Oh.
So it was like, as soon as I like realized that like, no face, run. Like I was like really, I remembered the hole in the stomach the most. That was the thing for me. I think there's a funny movie where a woman ends up with a hole in her stomach, and that's like the only.
Oh.
Can't remember the name of that movie.
Oh, Death Becomes Her?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen that. As soon as you said funny movie, that just automatically registered with me. Cool.
Yeah, so I'd seen the ghost before I seen that movie. So when I saw that movie, I was like, that's it.
So, a question here. You see this, and it's approaching. It takes on this shape of a woman, and you guys are actually there looking at it till it's about 10 feet away, and then you can see that it's showing you other things about it, like what you described. Why didn't you leave sooner? Is there any chance that this ghost had sort of like a hold over you
So,
and the other people there?
I really couldn't see very well when I was young.
Right.
I used to wear very thick glasses, so that was a part of it.
Oh.
And at the time, sometimes actual living people, would go walking down the beach at night, especially when it was a nice, like, moon out. I can't remember what moon phase it was, but the moon was out.
Oh, okay. And speaking of that, maybe a little pause on everything. I think, I've seen your posts on Instagram and such. You seem to have affiliation of some type, or some type of relationship with the moon itself. Is it just because it's beautiful, or you think there's a little bit more to that for you? Just kind of curious about that.
Um, well, I actually plan my days and certain things around the moon phases, kind of like the ancient Hawaiians did. So I follow that. Um, what's that called? Structure.
Yes. Yes.
So depending on what moon phase it is, um, I will decide whether I want to start a new plan or if I want to start a new project, plant seeds, farm, cook. No, I live by the moon. That's and it's always been kind of a weird thing to me that I always know where the moon is in the sky. I
Right.
always knew where it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also came with the doing astronomy for so long. I kind of just know where it is because of the time of day now.
I
But I
should
always had to know where it was.
I should do a whole show on the moon itself. I mean, I feel that it affects a lot of things in people's lives. I mean, you name it, from the it could be like the spiritual, or just the practical, like with growing crops and everything else, to a whole
Mm-hmm.
different level where these whole things with ghosts and everything, it actually affects the experience that you can get with them, like with blood moons and such. And so,
Mm-hmm.
very much so intrigued by this whole concept of the relationship with the moon, and us people, the earth itself, and then of course with ghosts and spirits. I wish you knew what phase of the moon it was when you saw this faceless woman with a hole in her stomach.
It was so long ago I can't really remember.
Okay.
But there was moonlight, so there was enough of a moon phase for that.
Ah. So, did you tell? I mean, I'm sure you told your family that you saw this spirit on the beach. Um, if
So
Yeah.
the other reason me and my cousins just got up and ran when we saw that it was the faceless woman
Mm-hmm.
was because before that we had heard another ghost story having to do with somebody that was fighting with my grandfather way before us kids at the time was born. And so what happened was this guy was fighting with my grandfather over a piece of land. So the guy that was fighting my grandfather ended up sleeping across the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of the night, according to my mom who told me the story, he came back and this guy's face was all puffy. It looked like he just got real beat up, real bad. And he went back to my grandfather's house and they took care of him, but he had been really beat up by a ghost. And story goes, when they were like, "Oh, what happened to him?" Well, the lady went put sand in his eyes. And so from that, we were like, if we see a lady across the beach with no face, we run.
So you're saying that this is the same ghost?
We were thinking it's the same ghost.
Oh. I know
There's
that.
a
I know in the past, Waiholi. I'm sorry about that. Waiholi has beaches and stuff, but they're kind of like. I mean, if you're a local person and you live here, you drive out to Waiholi, Waikani, and you're looking off, okay, towards the ocean. I mean, it was kind of like there's like a lot of vegetation and trees and such over there. So, I mean, I would always think that you barely have a beach at all, and much less what you were describing. Uh, I think that alone is just creepy as hell. I mean, you only have so much to work with.
mm-hmm.
If that's the same type of thing I'm talking about, because these areas I'm talking about is like near where Old Waihole Poi Factory side, and I'm not gonna say there, but that area. So I don't know how close that
That
was.
area is a little further down.
Little further down, little further
Yeah.
down from that area. Whoa, kind of makes you wonder. I mean, why was this okay? Japan and Hawaii again. We have a connection with their ghosts, and as here as well, and Nopero Bowl and such with the faceless woman, but this doesn't just seems like the typical faceless woman. This is just, I don't know if it's through sand in your grandfather's eyes or whatnot, and its
It
appearance.
was the guy that was fighting my grandfather.
Oh, the guy that was fighting your grandfather. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got that part. But still, I mean, that's really scary. You go countryside, man. No fool around, especially you drive late at night. Daytime, beautiful, right? Waihole is so beautiful. Oh, look at this place.
Oh, yeah,
Ah,
great place.
it is. Go stop by the Poi Factory, get some Hawaiian food and everything. Go nighttime, it's a whole different vibe unto itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty creepy at night.
it really is. It truly is. So that's a great story. Is there anything else that happened to you? Like, I don't know if it's hard to top that story. Of anything more of a spiritual nature that you've encountered?
Um, Also in that area, I did kind of encounter night marchers. But it was more just sound. I was inside of a tent outside of my grandmother's house, and in the middle of the night, there was people walking by, going towards the ocean.
When you say people,
Like I heard it sounded like a parade of people walking past the tent in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. in the morning.
were you aware of night marchers, or was this something entirely new to you?
I was aware of them, but I thought they were mostly in the mountain, the north side. I know they made a path down to the ocean. I just didn't know what the path was until then.
I know that a lot of the stories we hear about night marches are going from a Malka to Makai or a Makai to Malka or a combination of both. And there are fantastic storytellers like Robert Lopaka Kapanui and Joe Punohu and a few others that really illustrate this point quite well. I mean, for me personally, as the closest I've gotten, and I've mentioned this at times in the past to night marches, is I don't even know. I don't even know if Mace is still listening tonight, but I'll talk about that in a second. But actually hearing the conch shells, and one time having an absolutely terrifying experience where we were surrounded by these ghosts. They were like, you could hear conch shells all the way around us, and the ground was vibrating. You could hear like this sound that was kind of like, below and above that sound of the conch shells, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, almost like chanting. Oh my God, this is beyond chicken skin. This is like your body goes totally, and your mind totally goes into, it's not fight or flight, it's just flight. Gotta get out, not gotta leave now. So I've gotten close like that in a couple of other situations with night marches, but never to the point where the Pahu came out and you saw the torches. According to what is said about night marches as well, it makes sense. Spirits can travel at their own speed. So, with one of the stories that I shared about a tragedy in Laie involving two children and night marchers, they were able to traverse great distances very quickly. I once had somebody contact me on Instagram and told me where they were looking out into the mountains. I think it was out by St. Louis Heights, and they saw these torches start at one point of the mountain and just traverse the entire thing within like seconds. And this really shook this guy up. I don't know if it's because the spirits found a way to directly get his attention, or just the fact of seeing something like that. So when you talk about the night marches, I definitely get overwhelmed with a sense of respect, and also scared.
Hmm.
I mean, and that's why I was asking so much about what you were experiencing, or did you feel fear or anything else besides that?
I was at first I got a little scared, but I was really young. I was like 8 years old,
Right.
and we were camping out, and I heard sound like footsteps. Somebody walking down next to the tent, and then I hear more marching, more feet, and then for a moment I was like, "Oh no, that's is that night marchers?" And then because when I was 8, I also already knew about night marchers. I would like, and I read about it.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I also knew about it, and after I felt scared for a bit, I had put my head down on the pillow and fallen asleep to the marching sound. Like to me, it became kind of like a lull, like white noise, and it was kind of soothing.
Wow.
And that's my memory of those night marches in Waihole. I don't ever plan on sleeping out over there again anytime soon. But
Yeah.
if I do, it's like going to be right at sunset.
I know with my last man camera ghost that I did on Halloween night. Incredible. Again, it was like me and Mace. Everyone was running around after a while that night because things were going crazy. But it was Mace that picked it up too. He started hearing like drum beats. I mean, this is all we were live that night. You know how I do my live stuff, Melody. So I was just, I think you may have watched it too. That's
Mm-hmm.
the last Halloween one I did. So everybody's running around in the video, and then at one point, there were times everybody was together, and then there were times that people were doing a thing with, there was like me and Mace at base camp, and he started to hear drums, and I'm like, so I'm kind of pausing with what I'm doing. I'm like, whoa, I mean, because when you're in that area, like, you talk about
Mm-hmm.
Waihole, Waikane, and some of these places, you're practically in night marcher territory. I mean, that's just no two ways about it. That whole place, you just keep moving around and you'll encounter different things, but you can encounter night marchers. And Mace heard drums, and then I stopped and I started hearing drums, and that's coming
Mm-hmm.
from up the road at Judd Trail, and this is a place where so many crazy things happen. I mean, even with Mason stuff, we've encountered things there, but the whole thing about that place feeling like there's dimensional shifts and then alteration in time, like time shifts and everything, as well as the dimensional stuff, or a combination of the two. So I don't know if that's kind of like plays into this, maybe because the Battle of Nuuanu was there, and then all of a sudden, bang, these type of situations happen and they create the perfect experience. But Mace heard it, and then I started hearing it, and that's an amazing type of thing, and then for like me, I'm like, I can hear the night marchers, but please don't come any closer, because we're doing stuff with ghosts, we're talking to ghosts and everything too, but they were probably going about whatever they were doing on Halloween night. And I've heard night marchers at Manoa Chinese Cemetery, no joke. I've heard them over there. My other friend Jan, uh, she heard them too. Joe Punohu heard them all up there. We could hear conch shells and stuff. No explanation for that, and so I'm glad yours wasn't like that. It sounded like there's different types of night marchers experiences as well. There's one particular type of experience with night marchers where it depends on, I believe, the god or the chief, the ali'i or the queen, what type of experience that they want to have, what kind of march they want to have. But I know one of them, the experience is very quiet. So,
Mm-hmm.
because of that, Melody, do you think that you had that type of night marcher thing going on where it was very quiet in the area?
I think so, because it's like I just remember hearing the marching and then hearing people. It sounded like people going into the ocean for a swim, because that's how close the beach is. just across the street.
Wow. That that
And
that is amazing. So okay, so what is that basically what you were experiencing? Like people were just going into the water and nothing bigger than that
like it was
happened.
the end of the march.
Yeah.
That's how I was experiencing it.
You didn't see any type of like torchlight or anything at all?
No, it was all sound, and because I was in a tent,
Mm-hmm.
there was sound, and I was lying down with my head slightly on a pillow
Mm-hmm.
and shadows. That was it.
How long did this go on for again?
I just I can't really remember how long exactly because the sound of it put me to sleep.
Wow.
So it must have been like maybe half an hour.
Mm-hmm. Some of this, one of the most famous stories I've heard about night marchers, and I won't spoil it completely because if you want to read all the details about it, then go ahead and check out Glenn Grant's books about uh, the spirits of Hawaii and such. But there was one story where, in essence, what was seen, eyewitness account, was not just the typical, not typical, what you would know the night marchers as being with warriors and such in the procession, but also, and it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to hear about this. There were like people from all different walks of life being a part of the procession. So I know. I mean, again, it's interesting with what you experienced. I mean, was this that type of procession, or just the one where the elite or such wanted it to be very quiet? And on top of that, they didn't bother you. Like, did you feel them like or felt them like walking on one side of the tent, or did they kind of like go around your tent?
It was only on one side because I had one side facing the house,
Yes.
like really close to the house, and the other side was the side they walked on.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. It really does.
Like we
That.
weren't really in the way of any walkway, so it's just kind of like walk by on that side.
Hmm. Wow. You've had your experiences, my friend. You've seen some pretty interesting stuff, including what you just described at the beach at Waihole Waikane area, and which totally makes sense to me because we're I always say this about hauntings on this island and the other islands. We're not a very big place. When you look at the scheme of things or like how big other parts of the world are, so we're rather
Mm-hmm.
small. And it's only a matter of time for a lot of people to just experience a haunting, whether it's in your home or you're out and about somewhere, or like you working at a museum. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost, to me at least, and of course there's skeptics out there, it's almost unavoidable. Like, you're going to encounter them. I know Mace, I don't know if Mace is still listening or if he'll be listening later on, working with HPD. These are the bravest people in the world. They not only
Yeah.
have to put their lives on the line, but they're at locations, especially at night, and they start to encounter things and scary as hell stuff. Some of the things Mace has told me about, I'm like, my God, did they give badges for that? I mean, because it's just that intense. So, but that's the way this island is, and hearing your
Mm-hmm.
stories, it just makes me think about that. You're eventually going to run into something or someone or whatever the case may be. So,
Pretty much everywhere I've lived on this island, I've encountered something. So,
But not too much in Kaneohe, though, yeah? Kaneohe seems pretty chill.
but Kaneohe is pretty chill. I just have a haunted house, but it's more of a family haunted house. Sometimes the family comes back and visits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially when we're having a family reunion, baby luau, somebody will be like, hey, who's that in the back? And it would look like one of our family members who had passed on walked in the back, or they joined us, like peeked in. Like, everyone would be sitting in, eating poo-poos, and then we see somebody peek in from the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, was that Grandpa?
I think you had a story. Did you share it about the? You did have. Wasn't there a story about a funeral as well, and a family member that was seen at the funeral too, that had passed away?
That was on my mother's side at her funeral. At not her funeral, at my great grandmother's funeral. I had seen my great grandmother in her casket, as well as in the back of the room, surveying her entire family gathering. And I kind of like remember her acknowledging that I could see her.
Wow.
But I was like 5.
Well, that's at an age too when people still are,
Very.
seeing things pretty directly. So I believe that as well. I believe everything you said. There's just so much heart in what you talk about, and that's why it's good to have these shows, to have people come out and just say things that are pretty much up and up about these experiences and such. And do you think that you will ever have an experience with like anything like, say, Bishop Museum again, where like it's spirits of Hawaii, and you might have an encounter with them? I know you said your house is haunted, but that's family and such. But
Mm-hmm.
do you think that that there's a special thing about you and ghosts, and that your story is not yet done with them?
I think so. Well, to give you an example, just a random thought that came into my mind the other day
Mm.
was that Target is a target for ghost hauntings, like ghost experiences. Everywhere that on our island, I've noticed that the locations are a little auspicious. The newest Target that's opening up will be opening in Sears at Windward Mall. And something that had happened to me when I was working in Sears, I was working in the tuxedo shop and closing up. And I had stayed in there after the lights had closed down with a coworker.
Mm-hmm.
While we were working in there, he's freaking out because he heard stories about Sears and Windward Mall being haunted because of the cemetery right there. And as we're closing up and trying to get out of there, one of the mannequins moved. And my coworker just screams at the top of his lungs. And I'm like, yo, we're getting out of here. Chill. It was just like the mannequin just moved to look right at us. It was pretty creepy.
I'm glad you brought that up, because how could I overlook that one thing? I guess I was getting caught up in these stories that you were talking about. But yeah, Windward Mall is really, Kaneohe is really haunted because of this one particular place. And yes, it's called Windward Mall. Back in the day, before Windward Mall was built, if you were to drive by there, you would see like just this empty lot that had like graves and such like that. From what I understand, they took all of the graves that were up in that area. There was like in their own locations, and they gathered them together, and they put them in the back parking lot of Windward Mall.
Mm-hmm.
Stories persist to this day. There have been sightings of people saying that they actually dig up Every once in a while, they'll dig up the parking lot, certain areas of it, because they just found another grave, and then they relocate them. Speaking of Sears and Windward Mall, um, my brother, who used to work there at night, overnight, he was there one evening with one of the security guards, sitting in the golf cart, and the security guard was kind of like drifting off and falling asleep, but my brother was awake, and he looks towards the downstairs parking lot at Sears at Winter Mall, and he sees something that just totally startles him, and he just nudges the security guard and says, "Hey, take a look at that." And what they both see, I witness to, are these spirits, modern day looking spirits, nothing that, like the what we're talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like on the outside of the mall, and they're walking into Sears. Of course, this is like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. The doors are shut, they're locked, and they're walking in there. And there's just that sense of being astounded. And he worked there long enough to share quite a few stories about that place. It is extremely haunted. When I used to go and visit there, if you're on the second floor of Windward Mall, every once in a while you would feel like the ground lift up. Now, people can tell me, "Oh, it's the vibration because of the structure, the second floor, and the cars outside moving." No, this did not feel like cars outside and on the road and vibrations. This felt like underneath the mall, something actually lifted it up. I mean, lifted it up from its foundations. That's exactly how
Mm-hmm.
it felt. Like, you got to think about that too. That whole area of Winter Mall, that's where the graves were at. So
Yep.
tell me if that's not a little bit on the spooky side. Like maybe someone was saying, "Hey, guess what? We're still here, and we're not happy with what you've done. We still have some unfinished business to attend to." That to me is scary.
Yep.
I'm
So,
sorry. I'm sorry.
so yeah, Winter Mall is the big spot on the in Kaneohe,
Hmm.
Oahu.
Hmm.
Somebody in chat asked what island it was, and
Oh, really?
then
Somebody asked? Let me look at the chat for a second. Excuse me one second.
I,
I thank you for bringing that up. Somebody brought that up. Let me go look at that. Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. So what did somebody say now?
Browndorf asked, "What island are we talking about?"
Oh,
We are on Oahu.
yes, we're at the melting pot in so many ways, not just culturally speaking, but as well as ghosts and spirits are concerned too. Yeah, we're on
So I had
Oahu.
so I had mentioned Windward Mall because that's where the new Target's going to be, and Target likes haunted locations. The Target in Kailua is
Oh,
where the old Don Q's used to be, or Dai'e Holiday Mart,
oh, yes, yes,
depending on your age.
yes.
And that area, I remember going in there when it was still Dai'e, and I would see things fly off the shelves. So that's Target number 2 that's haunted. Target number 3 that's haunted is the one in Ala Moana, where the old Nordstrom used to be. And something about that area, since it's sinking, is kind of attracts a lot of spirits.
Real quick on that one with Nordstrom and everything over there in that location. I was investigating a lot of different places on the island, including in town, and just asking people questions and stuff. And I was drawn to the location that you're describing because when Nordstrom and such first opened, this might explain a lot of it for real, because it just created a burst of intense, spooky type encounters. There was this exhibit. I can't remember what it was called, but what it was is that they took human bodies from people that were like prisoners and such, if I'm not mistaken, and they asked permission if they could have their bodies when they died, and they turned them into works of art. And this exhibit was traveling all over the place throughout the world, and it stopped at that place just when that store opened up, Nordstrom. And people were telling me that they were seeing spirits like from across the street from Nordstrom walk towards Nordstrom and right into these big double doors. They would walk through or run across the street and go into there. And they said that it was because of the exhibit, that these spirits are wandering around, and at the end of the night, whatever, they would go back to their bodies. And
Mhm.
so what I did was I did an EVP there one night, and I was asking that, oh, if you guys are around, could you give me a sound? Because I was standing in front of the door. I didn't hear nothing until I played it back, and you could hear and it was spooky. It wasn't like a soft voice. It wasn't like this. It was like this loud
Mhm.
boom, 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 like that, like a lot, like 10 times or more, really, really fast in the door. It was so loud. There's no way I could have missed that. I would have responded in the recording. And behind those two big doors are where these bodies are. These
Mhm.
bodies are at. So what you're telling me again, uh, yeah, that maybe that explains it though. Maybe it does. And from what I understand, there was a lot of sad energy involved with the displays too, and such. Like some of these people didn't really want to do what they did, but they ended up giving their bodies over to be exhibits and such. So who
Mhm.
knows? The other one too, I want to talk to you about, Melody, real quick, is what you described, what you were feeling at the one in Kailua. What part of the store was this at?
Um, it was back when it was that A, and the closest side that's um to the marsh. Hey, come to think of it, I did go visit Kailua Target recently, and it still has a very strong, heavy feeling on the marsh side of Target, like right by the entrance.
Wow. Because when I went there, if you go into the parking lot, I guess when you're going into the area, there's like this little partition off area that looks like an ahu. An ahu is like a place where they keep the EV and such. It reminded me of the one that's in Walmart on Keomoku. There's a whole area that's set
Mhm.
aside for these EV that they displace, and I think they were keeping them in Matson containers or something. But there's a place like that at Target, this little area, and when we went there, it did feel off. It felt weird and heavy. So when I went into the store, you know, you kind of get a little disoriented. But when you walk in the back where the electronics are, bam, you really feel it right there. It's like, are they using the energy from the equipment there, like the computers and such, on display for their own
Mhm.
reason? Could be, but
Could be.
yeah, could be. But I went through that, what you were describing. It was a real heavy feeling.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
heavy.
not too fond of the Kailua Target, but the Target in Ala is okay.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, crazy places. Um, and of course, all of them are to be respected.
Mhm.
And I hope that people like you who share their stories can bring us closer to that type of feeling about such things. And you have different degrees of experiences. Uh, but like with the one I described to you, where the bottom of the mall felt like something. You ever see the movie Tremors, and then these
The
creatures,
whale when the worm's coming up.
yeah, coming out of the ground,
And
right? It's kind of like,
yeah.
it kind of reminded me like something coming out from the earth and then lifting, coming out with its back or whatever. And it was so big and powerful, it actually lifted up the bottom of the mall. So again, there's all these different types of experiences with spirits, from the sublime, very sublime, to the profound, to the powerful, that just literally, for one reason or another, brings me back to all these people that watch this show, and to people like you that I'm grateful to sharing things about these type of stuff. So, is there anything else you wanted to conclude with at all, or pretty much you're continuing your path now and see what happens from there?
Um, I can't really think of any other stories. I've had so many experiences throughout my life. Like, did we talk about Hickam in the last time?
I don't think so. Well, not much. I mean, we probably touched bases on some things, but nothing major. What happened with Hickam?
When I was really young, I went to Hickam Elementary, and one of the ghosts that perplexed me, scared me at first, but then became just interesting, was that in the office building was this ghost that would stand in the corner, and I knew it was a ghost because this guy had no head.
Ooh,
So
we may have talked about that. Wow.
a lot of places to go to see some interesting ghosts is where we were affected by World War II.
Yeah, yeah, we did talk about this because I remember bringing up Pearl Harbor and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that one of the things that was shared with me by family is that there were people there during the attack and afterwards, and some of these poor servicemen or even civilians were like just blown to bits, or pieces of them were scattered around. So when you say stuff like that, again, it just connects. You connect the dots, and you kind of like are left in awe and sadness too because of stuff like that, especially military places.
And then as for myself, I did not only experience ghost things here in Hawaii, I did do a little bit of traveling. And one of the most interesting things for me was when I visited Mexico and got to swim in this underground, it's called a cenote, the underground cave pond. I had actually encountered a ghost there that had pulled on my leg. And because of my knowledge of the ghost stories here in Hawaii and about the ghost that would pull your legs out in the ocean here, I kind of knew what it was and was able to give it the respect that not a lot of people give to like ghost experiences in a place that's away from home.
Wow. Yeah, they're everywhere. What can we say?
Oh yeah.
They're just all over the place. They've been around for so long, I think one of the most earliest recorded ghost stories was back in ancient Greece, I believe it was. One of the first, documented ones. Not the first, but, the earliest documentations go back to around that time frame and such. I'm sure way before that, before we even had written languages and everything too. So, but wow, thank you so much for all of these incredible stories that you've shared with us. I'll never forget this faceless woman with the hole in her stomach wandering around late at night in Waihole, Waikane. Sometimes I'll even be laying in bed wondering to myself, there are these places on this island alone that are lonely and dark at night. Who knows what happens in these places? And sometimes stories will pop up like the ones that you shared and such. So again, thank you so much, and again, also thank you for being one of the moderators for the show. I know that you're on pretty often when I come on, and I do like these talked in the dark or talking ghosts, where we're sharing these type of experiences together, and thank you for being a part of that as well. And I look forward to, if anything comes up, let me know, and then we'll definitely talk about it. Also, you're on
Oh yeah.
You're on Instagram, so Is there
Oh yeah,
anything?
so I actually have
Yeah, go ahead.
um, a little self promo plugs to
Yes,
throw out there.
yes.
I am also known as Koneko Kid on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. Uh, on Twitch, I stream gacha games on mobile. I also have a Facebook page called Curating the Cosmos, where I put a lot of my astronomy and space stuff. And I run the website for a little store in Kaneohe called Chaos Incorporated. So it's chaosincorporatedhawaii.com.
You are a
And
very you're a very busy person, right? For the most part.
mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
I'm also on the computer.
There you go. So you're on Twitch, huh? Huh. Well, what's your handle on Twitch?
Koneko Kid.
Really?
KONEKOKID. That's kind
Okay.
of my online persona.
Awesome. I know that a lot of people are playing Elden Ring and such right now, and getting their butts whooped and handed to them. But that's very cool. And you do mobile games on there.
Mobile games, and I also sometimes stream Destiny 2, which is a PlayStation game.
Oh, okay. All of this sounds very good. So, Instagram, what is your? Okay, let's go through it one more time. Instagram, what is your Instagram?
Koneko Kid,
Facebook, same.
or Curating the Cosmos.
Okay. And Facebook is same.
Same.
Okay.
Curating the Cosmos.
Okay. Cool. I
And
look
then I
forward.
also have all my cats.
I look forward to checking out. I didn't. I don't think I saw too much of curating the cosmos. I'm looking forward to seeing some of that stuff that you have going on over
I'm
there.
trying to keep up with what's going on in space and astronomy. I still do a lot of watching meteor showers.
Ooh.
And if you think it's a UFO, give me a call. I'll let you know what it really is. Probably Venus.
Well, I've had my experiences with them, and some of them are truly terrifying. The whole thing that I shared on this channel with what happened in Kaneohe back in the
I
year,
remember that.
yeah, 1995. That was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That was absolutely insane. Where it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're up at Haiku Park, and then it's really super quiet, right? And you see these objects in the sky, and you hear all the dogs start to howl for no reason. And
Mm-hmm.
so you go and gain higher ground, and you lift up your binoculars at one of these objects, and what it looks like, I swear to God, it looked like a humanoid figure flying
Mm-hmm.
around the actual orange pulsating object. I mean, I'm really looking forward to someone to explain that part to me, because that was
That's
bananas.
a hard one.
Yeah, that was bananas. But that happened. That happened for about a month, and that was crazy. So, yeah, there's.
I,
Go on.
I've also seen a lot of weird things happen in the sky because I've been studying astronomy since '92. So my eyes are always on the sky.
Well, maybe one day we can do a whole thing about UFOs. I done one with
Oh
Faye
yeah.
and totally enjoyed her encounters that were shared. So yeah, I mean, the thing about UFOs, real quick before we wrap things up too, with UFOs is, like you said, you're looking up in the sky and you're seeing all this crazy stuff. Not everyone is always looking up into the sky, so we miss a lot of things when we're not observing things on that level. But then again, sometimes these objects have a way of just gathering your attention in large groups or individually as well. So, but I definitely believe that there is something out there, not only in front of us and around us, between dimensions and everything else. There's the things that are above us as well. And man is a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting, um, man is a very interesting type of thing to look at, because we are so eager to more or less want to figure out, how do we get from here to Mars or whatever else too, but we haven't really figured out what's going on completely here on Earth. We don't know everything that's in our oceans and such, but that kind of makes it fun too. So, and thank you for making this show fun. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. If we ever do a UFO type thing, you're going to be one of the first people I contact, and we will talk story about them too, because I'm fascinated with all parts of the paranormal, besides ghosts and such. So, thank you so much. Please stay
Yeah, thank
on.
you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Please stay on until we're done closing out the show, and then I will talk to you a little bit after we're finished. So, everyone that's watching right now, just to let you know, we do have a show coming up in April, I believe, and that's with Jamie Whitaker. Fantastic lady. She has an Instagram and Facebook as well. She does some interesting things on there. But we're going to be talking about spirit work. We're going to be talking about all things that are ghosts, but at the same time spiritual. And that's how we roll on this particular channel. We get into the spooky, and then we get into the things that are kind of like on the cutting edge way of looking at things, you know. So keep an eye out for that. And I will be getting a hold of Punohu as well, Joe Punohu and such. And also Dale, I need to talk to Dale and get things situated with his paranormal group and the fascinating stories of the place that he lives in as well. Scary stuff, because he used to post it on my Facebook group. With that all said, people, thank you so much for being here. Again, Melody, fantastic stories tonight from a fantastic person. And I look forward to talking with you more, and then also seeing you on the chat stream. Thank you for being a great mod and everything too. So hopefully you enjoyed yourself this evening.
It's fun.
Glad to hear that. All right, guys, I'm going to end it with a short. Oh, one thing I wanted to cover before signing off, and I mentioned this before too. We are in the time of Lent. Now, there's some of you that are believers in the spiritual side and with God and everything too. And maybe some of you are on the fence and whatnot. But during the time of Lent, activity goes up. Really, really, truly goes up. And I've seen firsthand how terrifying the activity can get. And it's definitely connected to the demonic. So bear in mind that if you're experiencing anything weird at this time of the year, that could possibly be one of the explanations, and take it to heart. And if you need to reach out to somebody, we have great communities here in Hawaii with Hawaiian Hauntings, and I'm always ears too, or very, very knowledgeable people with great mana'o like Robert Lopaka Kapanui. So just keep in mind that these people are out there and they share their own experiences that you could benefit from by listening to them. So check out their live streams as well too, yeah, and you'll gain something from that. I guarantee you. With that said, everybody be aware of this time of year. It lasts during the entire time of Lent, and I hope that we all have a good spring season as well. And I will talk to you again soon. Quick prayer in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Father in heaven, we ask that we're all guided and protected by your loving light against all manners of negativity and evil spirits, and that as we leave this conversation, that our lives go to better situations as well. I ask this in your holy, loving name, for I know you love us all. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, Melody, stay on, and I'm going to wrap things up. Everyone else, I will see you all soon. I will leave some stuff for you on our community board when we have new shows and such. I will post that up there. I definitely have one, I believe, coming up in April with Jamie Whitaker. She's been on the show before. She's very, very cool, guys. When I announce her, please stop on by and check it out. All right, Ghosts of Hawaii, your home for a dose of ghosts. And sometimes a woman walking along the beach, you just don't want to get too close to her, based upon what Melody described. You all take care. Have a good night. God bless.